All right, Jastin, A through Z.
P.
Yeah, I got this. In some, sad news, someone that passed away this past week was wrestler Sid Vicious, also Psycho Sid. As you may know him. I don't remember which one was from which promotion, but it's all the same person.
I believe WCW, he was Sid Vicious. And then at WWE at the time, WWF, he was Psycho Sid, I believe.
Wasn't he also Sid Justice at one point too?
Possibly.
He had a few names, as wrestlers did back then. I mean, very, very unique wrestler. Also, he'll weirdly live in infamy for a particular match where he breaks his leg. Like, that'll unfortunately be one of his lasting impressions because it's one of the most gruesome things you'll ever see.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, people have even dubbed it the jelly leg. So just be warned, if you go seek out that video and you don't know what I'm talking about, just be warned. It's a lot. Outside of that, we got a lot of weird comments recently about sequels from their directors. One of them was from a Mr. Todd Phillips. You may know him as the director of The Hangover, also the director of The Joker, and also the Joker 2, Folie à Deux. So yeah, the comments he made is like, hey guys, just so you know, our Harley Quinn in this movie, she won't be like silly. She won't talk in a high-pitched voice, and she won't chew gum. She won't be sassy. She won't be, all those things that are characteristics of the character of Harley Quinn. So it's real interesting that that's the choice they make of going, hey, we're doing this character, but it's nothing like this character ever. Like, it's nothing like this character's ever been before. You're just like, oh, okay, so why don't you just do a different character then? Like, why is that a thing? Why are you intentionally doing a character just to not do that character? Like,
which is the same thing for like the movie itself. Like even the first Joker movie where it's like, why don't we just make this a movie about somebody completely different? Because it doesn't need to be the Joker,
Yeah, it sounds kind of par for the course for what they did with the first Joker. There were characters that were unlike themselves. I even argued in that this didn't strike me at all as someone who becomes the Joker that we know, or like it didn't even seem like the beginning of the Joker. It just felt like a completely different character. So, I mean, there's no shock to me, man. I knew. I could just tell by the previews that she was going to be hella different. Like, It would be weird to have the Joker, the Arthur Fleck Joker, and then have a Harley Quinn that's the Harley Quinn we know. That doesn't even seem like it would even make sense for that movie. She wouldn't match him at all. So I kind of feel like this is probably it feels like this was probably the natural way they were going to go, just given what we saw in the first film.
But that's kind of one of the things that is somewhat appealing about the Joker and Harley Quinn dynamic is the fact that they are very different. They're different, but weirdly the same. You know, like the Joker is this evil, maniacal, mass murdering asshole that cracks a lot of jokes, and she's, you know, like bubbly and, you know, all of those things, but then also still murderous as fuck. You know, so it's always those nice little aspects of it. But also to go both further with y'all's points, this is also what Todd Phillips described his movie when he says, it's not really a musical. We just use songs to replace some of the dialogue because sometimes Arthur just doesn't know what to say, so he sings it instead. You know, like a musical.
Yeah, that's like the definition of a musical.
We just replaced some parts of the dialogue with songs. Yeah. Like a musical. And then he takes a shot at another movie when he goes, yeah, this isn't In the Heights. I was like, that's a weird jab. Why are you going after In the Heights?
So I guess he's saying that the entire thing is not a musical. Like, is he arguing the specifics of that maybe? Like, is he saying that the entire film in and of itself is not a musical? It just has some musical parts, but it's not an entire music production.
Well, is
that what he was trying to say?
I don't know. From what I can tell, it's a jukebox musical. It's just a musical done with popular songs. Like that's what this is. It's not, they're not doing like originals or anything like that. They're just throwing in, you know, popular songs into the movie, and it will be performed by the cast while they're doing it. I mean, I guess that could be what he's saying, or I think it just kind of goes back to some of the things this guy says, like so much of like, you know, like, oh, this is a Joker movie, but it's not the Joker. Oh, we're adding Harley Quinn, but we're not adding Harley Quinn. You know, this is a musical, but it's not a musical. Like, I think it's just more of him trying to be, you know, just saying that they're not doing what they're doing. Like, or just trying to like use the justification of, well, it's not really a musical. We just sing some songs throughout the whole movie. Like, I don't know. I've never felt like a guy knew less about making movies, but makes movies than Todd Phillips. Like, he just constantly is like, you know, just saying it's always the opposite of what it is. I will say this one. I want to say it's the president of the Venice Art Society, or one of those people of one of those film festivals, was talking about the Joker too. Apparently they had seen a cut of it, and they're like, oh man, this isn't one of the movies you're going to expect, because it's so much darker. It's so much more like, it's so much darker than the first one. I'm like, was that the problem with the first one? Was that what anyone said? Like the first one was like, that was the problem with it. It wasn't dark enough. I mean, and don't get me wrong. There's the argument to be made that they should do whatever the fuck they want in this movie, because obviously with this movie, or with the first movie making the amount of money it did, it clicked with some people. So that's your audience. You're targeting them. You know, they're Warner Brothers and Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. they're not making this movie with the intention of winning over the people that didn't like the first one. That's not what they're doing. You know, they're taking the approach of, we're targeting the people that made us $1 billion. Which, you know, is probably the smarter choice. I'll give them that. Because the movie made a fucking $1 billion. Like, as crazy as it is, the movie made so much money. So.
Yeah, and speaking of audience, that also could explain why you sort of have the wishy-washy answers of it is, but it isn't. You know, if you say, yes, it's a musical, that might garner certain expectations from your audience. And maybe some of those people that you made that $1 billion off of may not come if they think it is a musical. You know what I mean? If you say, well, it's Harley Quinn, but it's not quite Harley Quinn, then maybe some of those people who don't like, you know, who don't like Harley Quinn or who don't like that character that way, you know, you leave it open for them to go, oh, it's going to be different. So she's not just going to be jumping around doing a Margot Robbie impression. Okay, maybe I'll come see it. You know, sometimes doing that stuff strategically, it kind of dilutes the expectations that people might have. And sometimes for a movie, strategy wise, you want people to have expectations and know what they're walking into and be like, yeah, I'm going to pay for that. I know what I'm walking to. But sometimes you don't want them to know what they're walking to. You don't want them to make too many assumptions. You don't want them to think that way because that might deter them from trying your movie. So I don't know. It could all be a part of the strategy.
You know, that's fair, Jastin. I mean, my biggest hope for that movie, honestly, at this point, I hope it does not live up to my expectations. In all honesty. Like, there's nothing I want more than for this movie to defy my expectations. And I'm basing those expectations off things the man has said. And, you know, the first movie.
Yeah. I mean, would it be fair to say that also it feels a little bit like he's going out of his way to describe it in a specific way when it's just kind of not helping the situation? Maybe that's what it is, where it's like, just leave it be without explaining or over explaining it. And then people are just going to go in, you know, thinking what they already think about it one way or the other. You know what I mean?
I mean, my biggest thing with it is I am very confused about the decision to make it, I don't know, musical adjacent. I don't know what the fuck he wants to call this movie. You know, musical-esque, musical zero, something, whatever. Because, you know, it's not to play into some stereotypes. The audience that made the Joker successful aren't known for liking musicals. I mean, I'm just trying to be slightly realistic. People that live in their mother's basements don't like to watch movies where people sing. And so I'm very confused on why they're going that route, outside of maybe the hubris of thinking I can make a musical for incels. Like, I can make the musical that incels want to watch. And I apologize to anybody that liked the original Joker movie and has had sex before. You're getting lumped in with all the ones that haven't. And obviously haven't, because they hate women. I'm fucking feisty today.
Yeah, I see that. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But I did want to say one thing. You did something that you did make me think about was when you said, I really hope that this film, and you said something about it like overcomes your expectations or it. And like,
or it's just different
you
from
said
my
that,
expectations. You know?
And it's like, and I was thinking about myself and going, well, what, like if somebody were to ask me, okay, what would this movie need to do in order for you to think it's good? And it's like, the interesting thing is that, like, I don't know if I can really answer that question, because I feel like I would have to have the mindset, because I went into the first movie with the mindset that I was seeing an origin story of the Joker character that I know. And that's not really what I got. I kind of got a movie about this person named Arthur Fleck who had some characteristics of the Joker, but it really wasn't like about a person becoming the Joker that I know. And now you got this movie, and he's outright saying it's not going to be, it's a musical, but it may not, but it kind of may not be. It's going to have Harley Quinn. It's going to be a character named Harley Quinn, but she is not going to be anything like the Harley Quinn that you know. So now that I know that going in, I can't have the same expectations of a Harley Quinn that I'm familiar with. So what can this movie do in order for me to enjoy? So I can't really use my familiarity with the characters and judge it the same way. So it's almost like, should I just go in and not even think about what I know about Harley Quinn and Joker and just try to look at it as two characters that just happen to be Joker and Harley Quinn and judge the movie that way? Like, you know, it's kind of like, what expectations should I have to give this movie a fair shake? Or is the movie just not going to get a fair shake from me because of my familiarity with the original IPs? So I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing in and of itself as well.
No, that's that's a very good observation, Jastin, because I honestly can't tell you that either. I can't tell you what the fuck I'd need to see to go, you know what? That Joker 2 won me over. I honestly can't tell you what that would be.
Right? Because like if a Spider-Man movie is coming out, I could probably tell you, okay, these things need to happen in order for me to enjoy this film. And I could probably give you a list of things. If a Batman movie was coming out, if this was, you know what I mean? Like something you're a fan of or know or familiar with or you like, if another John Wick was coming out, you could probably give me a couple of things, a list of things that would need to happen in order for you to enjoy that movie. I don't even know how to touch this. Like, just given what I already know.
Because the problem is when you're trying to go, hey, a sequel to a bad movie, how would it be good? I mean, I could tell you how to fix the first Joker, but until I watch this one, I can't tell you what it does have, doesn't have, what it needs, what it doesn't need. Like, I can't fix it without having seen it. You know what I mean? I can fix it when I've seen it, but you know what I mean? I can't tell you what it needs or doesn't need outside of that. You know? And whereas when you like something or something was good, you know, it's very easy to say what the next one needs. Because you just say, hey, some of what was already there. And then just add stuff to it. I won't even be specific about what you need to add because that's not the important thing. Just add to it. But, keep these the same, add some shit. Like, that's always the easiest thing to do. But I'm not going to lie. If that's what this movie is, if this movie's like, hey, it's more of the Joker, but we added some shit, that's not necessarily the formula that's going to win. At least to me. But like I said earlier, at this point, I'm not the target demographic for this movie. I should be. I'm a white male. God, if this movie was ever made for any demographic, it is white males. I mean, come on. The only thing that can make this movie more for white males is if Joe Rogan has a cameo in it.
Damn. Okay, gotcha.
But I do agree with you, Jastin, though. I can't tell you what it needs. Like, I wouldn't be able to succinctly break that down. Because I can't say, well, it needs to be more like the Joker, needs to be more like Harley Quinn. Because the foundations of this franchise is not that. It would be betraying everything it had done in its own universe. Which, like I said, might lose the core audience that made it $1 billion. So to be fair to this movie, it probably should just stay on its bullshit. Stay on its bullshit and make that money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's just weird for me because the reason why I didn't like the first one was because of certain expectations. So I'm like, will this movie get more of a fair shake from me? Because now I'm going to go in not having the expectations of where's the comic book? If I remove that, will this one get a more fair shake than I gave the first one?
That's an interesting point.
From my perspective, anyway. I don't know what the expectations you guys went in with, but that was my biggest problem with the first one, was that this is not enough like the Joker I know. He was just sporadically doing shit. He wasn't a criminal. I didn't see the makings of a criminal mastermind. I just didn't see enough of the Joker I'm familiar with. How selective he was with killing people. I just thought he would have killed these other people too and not left anybody else alive. There were just things that I wanted to see from the character that more resemble what I'm familiar reading and seeing from comics and movies and stuff like that. And that's why I didn't like that. So if I remove all of that and go into this and say, okay, I'm not looking for the comic book, and I'm just thinking in my head, this one might get more of a fair assessment from me because maybe some of those preconceived expectations, I won't have them because the director is telling me, hey, motherfucker, you're not going to get that shit. So,
I'm slightly confused by that, Jastin. He put on clown makeup. What more did you need, sir?
And he laughed. He did. He laughed.
And he killed people. Killer clown.
Yeah. And he did kill.
Clown prince of crime.
Mm-hmm. He danced and he laughed and he killed. So, come on, brother.
I'm thinking about it. How could it possibly be any more Joker than that, Jastin? I
So
mean,
this Harley will be the same way. She's going to laugh. She's going to quip a little bit and kill and like Joker.
God, we spent so much time on that movie.
I know we did. Yeah.
I'm going to jump into
I digress.
another director talking about a sequel to one of his films. Tim Burton released some comments about Beetlejuice. More or less going, hey guys, don't worry. Beetlejuice is going to be just as politically incorrect as ever. When I was writing Beetlejuice 2, I made sure to not be PC about things because Beetlejuice wouldn't be PC. So just expect all the more comments about wanting to fuck kids. Because that was just Beetlejuice's MO for an entire movie. So I guess we getting that again. That's fun. Yeah. What a strange time to be alive.
Well, God, hopefully he won't be doing that. I mean, luckily Winona Ryder has grown up. And I don't know if there's even going to be a kid in
Jenna
this.
Ortega's playing a fucking teenager. Jenna Ortega's playing her fucking teenage daughter.
Oh, okay.
No, to be fair, Jenna Ortega is not actually like a teenager anymore. She might be, no, because she's over 20, I think. So she is not underage like Winona Ryder was in the first one. So that is a plus.
And that's all I was saying. I didn't think anybody was. And I thought that his relationship was going to mainly be with Winona. So I just thought maybe he can have him be not politically correct Beetlejuice and just never really have to cross that bridge is what I'm trying to say.
If his focus is
there
on
may not
Winona,
be a situation where he's lusting after a kid.
as long as his character doesn't lust after Jenna Ortega's character, then you are absolutely right, Jastin. It could just him making crass jokes.
Yeah, that's all I'm thinking.
You know what? If it does go that route, totally fair. I'm just worried because from what the trailer shows, I think Jenna Ortega is going to be the one that summons him. And so, that's...
So it could.
Yeah.
It could.
It's just,
he could.
That just, we just... It's fucking 2024. We just don't need that shit. We don't. We didn't really need it back when the other one was made either, to be honest. But you know what? They did. It was a different time. Whatever. Apparently age just wasn't a thing back then. But you have to adapt that. You have to change it. And I get it. The mindset of, well, we want to keep the spirit of the first movie. Okay, you can do that without making those jokes. And you know what? Once again, maybe it's the whole knowing your audience. Because weirdly, people love Beetlejuice. I don't know what the deal is. I don't get it. But people love that movie.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, people love that movie and they'll watch it. Dude, there are people I know that if you made those types of jokes that are in that first movie, they would crucify you. But because it's in Beetlejuice, it's just jokes. Fuck off. It is just as bad in that movie also.
Yeah, he was a bit rapey.
He was, wasn't he? Isn't it that the most jarring thing sometimes when you go watch some shit and they make weird homophobic jokes or weird anti-trans jokes or just weird child rapey jokes and you're just like, people used to laugh at this. I probably laughed
And
at
then
this.
it upset you more when you think I used to laugh at this. Like I was reading a Frank Miller. Frank Miller did
Oh, that probably was rough as fuck, man.
Batman and Robin.
All-Star
the Boy
Batman and Robin?
Wonder. Yeah, All-Star Batman and Robin. And some of the shit in there, characters calling stuff queer and, oh, that's a queer, it's a Batmobile. Well, that's a queer ass name for a car. And, there was just like a lot of things in there. And I was like, damn, dude, like none of this would fly. Like this came out right now.
Dude, and the
None
thing
of
is
this would
that
fly.
shit didn't come out that long ago.
And it didn't. Yeah.
What, that
2004 through 2008, something like that.
Yeah, I was about to say. That shit's not that old.
It didn't hit the same, bruh. Because I never finished it. So I was like, you know what? I read that Crow thing. And so I was like, you know what? Let me see if this is in here. Let me finish this. And man, I was like, oh shit, what was he doing?
The second you said I read some Frank Miller, I was like, oh no.
Yep. Yeah. He don't hit the same no more, dog. And it's painful because the Jim Lee artwork is incredible, man. I fucking love Jim Lee, man.
Isn't that the most hurtful thing about it? You have this.
Yes.
You have Jim Lee just doing the most perfect of Jim Lee artwork. And you've just got horrible Frank Miller behind it writing all these terrible things.
I know, man. And like, Dick Grayson is like 12 years old in this. And there's a part where he punches the shit out of Dick Grayson. Like he has Batman do that. Like there are just things in it. And it's like, you can just tell now how he sees these characters. Or there's a part with Wonder Woman and in her head, she's ranting and raving about men and how they mess up everything and how they don't do anything right. And she hates this situation that she's in. And one guy is kind of brushes her on the street and she says, move out of the way, sperm bank. It's just stuff that like Wonder Woman would never say this. Like it's just what he thinks now.
It's what he thinks a feminist is.
Yes, that's exactly how it came off. It came off as a man who thinks he understands what a feminist is. And then another part where Batman references her and he goes, well, I've got to deal with the Boy Scout in tights. And then I've got this chick from Lesbo Island. And he says that, like Batman says that. And I'm like, Frank Miller, you were tripping, dog. Like,
if I'm remembering correctly,
and it made me mad that I like used to enjoy reading this.
If I'm remembering correctly, is this not the same series when Batman backhands Robin and says, "I'm the goddamn Batman"?
Yep, that's it. Yeah, the goddamn Batman. He's every issue. Either Batman calls himself the goddamn Batman or somebody calls him the goddamn Batman. And now it's funny because people now make fun of that now. Like, I'll be watching a YouTube video or something, they'll be referencing Batman, and somebody will go, the goddamn Batman. Now it feels like a joke. Like, now they just say it because it was cringe.
It's because, honestly, Frank Miller is a joke now. You go and look at his shit, it's a fucking joke. Every single thing he did that we used to look at and go, man, this shit's edgy for comics. You look at it now and you go, these are the sad ramblings of a pathetic old man. Like,
yeah, that's how it came off. And I'm so sad, bro. I used to love Frank Miller, bro. I loved Frank Miller.
Dude,
I love
it's the perfect encapsulation of what our generation has to go through with comics. Because, dude, Garth Ennis, Alan Moore, Frank Miller, like all these people that used to do some really edgy, really cool shit back in the day, you look at it now, for the most part, you're like, bro, that ain't that edgy anymore. It's just sad. Like with Garth Ennis, I mean, he did The Boys, the Boys comics. And there's a ton of shit in The Boys that they have changed for the show. Because, you know, while it was like edgy bullshit back in the day, it's just cringe now. You know? Now, and while I did bring Alan Moore into it, it's mainly his just personal mindset with things of, no, things can only be comic books and they can never be both a comic book and a movie or a comic book and a show or a comic book. No, like that's just dated bullshit. I will say this, you know, for the most part, a ton of his shit actually hasn't aged completely horrible.
Well, that's good to know. God.
I mean, because if you really think about The Watchmen, there's not too much in there. At least don't get me wrong. I could be forgetting whole pages of shit from The Watchmen. You know, it's a very long series. But like, even for the most part, Rorschach, the conservative, almost neo-Nazi asshat, isn't considered really a hero. Like Alan Moore looks at it when people go, man, Rorschach's my hero. Or when they talk about Watchmen, the TV series on HBO, and they're like, they ruined the legacy of Rorschach. No, they didn't. He was a bigoted scumbag. He was never meant to be considered a hero. That way, when neo-Nazis co-opted his fucking mindset and his manifesto, it actually makes complete sense. No, like, you're all wrong. Like, you know, and there's, you know, and it's mainly because I don't remember if there was anything that was directly like homophobic from The Watchmen. I know there are some things that dresses homosexuality in The Watchmen, but I don't know if it would have been out of place specifically for the time period. Like, as in, I don't think it's Alan Moore being homophobic. I think it's society and him writing true to what society was at the time. You know, if society itself would be outraged because two guys kissed on TV, he wrote the comic that the people were outraged if two guys kissed on TV. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, but, and to be fair, Alan Moore also could have been homophobic. I don't know. I just don't remember it, like, it coming across as I'm going to be anti-gay because this is just how I feel, versus if you're writing something that is a mirror on society, you have to have them react to things like society would have reacted to them at the time he is writing the book. Because that's the window he is, you know, encapsulating within the story. Oh my God, we've got so much still to cover. We still got to talk about The Crow. Roberto Orci. People may know him as one of the writers on some of the Transformers movies and some of the Star Trek reboots. He's been accused of sexually assaulting his wife and domestically being violent towards her. That's fun. Oh, man. I'm not laughing at that. I am laughing at the fact that that's just something that has to be talked about. You know, this guy sucks. You know, we can only hope that it's not true. But, you know,
just hate to hear that anytime. You just hate it.
I did want to end the news, though, on a slightly positive note. We are getting a season 4 of Ted Lasso.
Yay.
Most of the main cast is confirmed to be back. The titular Ted Lasso himself, Jason Sudeikis, might not be. So we'll see.
See, that would be the only thing to make me not happy about it. Because, I mean, how do you have Ted Lasso without Ted Lasso? So I guess we'll see what they do with that.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So, but yeah, the guy that plays Roy Kent and oh God, what's the name of the owner of the team? Heather, you know.
The owner of the team, Leslie. What's his last name? Higgins?
No, he's the president. No, what's her name?
Rebecca.
Yes.
Yeah, Hannah Waddingham.
Yes, but the character Rebecca, Roy Kent, and Coach Beard, all three of them are confirmed back. So.
I'm hopeful.
We'll have to see. You guys got any more news?
No.
Nope.
Well, just to tie this into a nice little bow. Here we go. Talking about a movie from a franchise that has both nostalgic elements and, I guess we'll have to see. Does it defy the expectations? Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
Somebody will listen to me. Nobody knows anything but you. All right. Are you ready? Yes. Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I'm joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight we're going to talk about what we did not like with the new 2024 reboot of The Crow. We will go spoiler-free recommendations and scores, and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description to allow you to jump around. And with that, who's going to be a resident Crow expert? Because, Jastin, you've read the graphic novel, but I've probably seen more of the movies. And then also, Heather doesn't care. So, which one of us is going to be the resident Crow expert between the three of us?
Well, this is a movie, so I would say Heather.
Fair enough. Heather, our resident Crow expert. What are your spoiler-free thoughts about this movie?
That all just made complete sense. Every last bit of that. Yeah.
No, I got it. As soon as Jastin was like, well, it's a movie, I was like, Heather. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well. I have to say I was not a big fan of this movie. I didn't necessarily expect that I would be. The only thing that I was looking forward to was seeing Bill Skarsgård as the character, because I do think Bill Skarsgård is a very good actor, and I wanted to see what he brought to it. I mean, that being said, he is probably the best thing about the movie, but I don't really know that says much, at least in my opinion, that I think he was the best. I think it's a lot of trying to be and look like a cool movie, but not really succeeding in making you care about it, really. That's kind of the main vibe. I heard somebody on a thing on TikTok say that it just looks like a CW movie, and I can't unsee that after I heard that. And because I think that sounds completely accurate that he said that.
To be fair, when they're in the Crowiverse, whatever the fuck that area is, so much of that looks like some scenes from late stage Supernatural.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking solid season
Crowiverse.
12 or 13 of Supernatural. What the fuck do you call that place, Jastin?
I don't know, but Crowiverse made me laugh because you just threw that O in there. It's just Crowiverse. You could have said the Crowverse, Seaverse,
No, it's the Crowiverse.
Crow portal. Okay, Heather, sorry.
You can't put a W and a V back to back. That's too many of these.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it is.
So you have to make sure it's a lowercase a, because if you put an uppercase a, oh man, it's a mess because it's all this, then it's like this, then it's this again. Oh man, got to be that lowercase.
And we definitely, we got to have something make sense in the Crowiverse, and it's got to be the name because it's not anything else.
Yep.
So thanks for saving us in that regard, Sterling. Much appreciated. But I think my thing with it is, I don't know. I feel like I wasn't interested in a lot of the like story they were trying to tell. I could see where they were trying to go with it. And again, I don't have the like the backstory, or like I didn't read the graphic novel or anything like that. So I don't really know if this is more accurate to that or if the original is. But my thing is like also because it's going to be hard to not. It's a reimagining of The Crow more so than like a remake, because the stories aren't even the same from the first movie to this one. If we're just talking about the two like original, like the main movie and this one and not all the crazy ones in between. I feel like it's just very different stories. Like it's got the same characters and some of the same elements, but it's not really telling, like, it's not the exact same story. Like they're just telling very different stories and like what's happening and all these things like that. So it's still hard to not compare it. And what I will say with that is I wasn't like a super big fan of the original Crow movie either. But like, I feel like the things I didn't like about that, I liked better in this one and vice versa. The things I didn't like about this one, I liked better in the original. Like, I think that the backstory of our two leads, I kind of like the backstory of them a little better in the original. In this one, I like how you kind of see the progression of our character becoming the Crow better. I kind of like how they did it better in this one. So it's really kind of a give and take, but that also means to me that neither one was better than the other. And that might be an unpopular opinion. I don't know, but I feel like it's a 1-for-1 swap of what's good and bad about both of them, or better and bad, because nothing's like good really about either. But I think that I feel like Bill Skarsgård did, I think, the best he could given the script he had, if that makes sense. But I just don't think the story flowed well. I don't think that it was, I think the dialogue was kind of messy and not realistic. And I don't know. I just feel like it just had elements of, like CW show. Like it just had the elements of like, we want to build up this almost like this teen drama or something type of show, but we only have like less than 2 hours to do the whole thing. And so you're not really getting quality anything with storyline, with characters being fleshed out, with any of that. So I just don't really think that reimagining The Crow in this way was really worth it because it didn't add anything to me caring about that character or that story. So it sucks because it's hard to really be like, here's why I think it was not a good movie without going into like the details of it. But all in all, not a good storyline, only okay acting from some people, bad acting from others, and just not a story that has any sort of depth, which is weird for a story that really wants you to think it has depth. It does not really have any depth to it. So it's very surface level everything. So that's what I got for now.
All right, Jastin. What do you got?
All right. So really, when I look at this movie, it almost felt like a sports team that comes up with this entire game plan for this other team, and they go, okay, this is what this team does well. So in order to beat that or to match this team, if we can do X, Y, A, B, and C, if we can do some of the things they don't do, if we can incorporate these plays that they don't run, then we'll be able to match this team. It'll give us a chance to win. You know, maybe we can even beat this team. And it would be like implementing all of this great strategy that on paper looks like a winning game plan, but forgetting that you don't have any of the talent or the ability or the intelligence or the execution to really get that game plan done, despite it being a great game plan on paper. Because I could tell what this movie was trying to do in comparison to the first one. Hey, the first one did the first Crow, and now we're talking about the Crow, the first Crow didn't really have a lot of development with the relationship between Eric and Shelley. So what we're going to do in this movie is, man, we're going to really deep dive into this. It's going to be different, but we're going to really give our audience a dive into it. We're going to spend more time on that. We're going to give them more minutes of that because that was something that the first movie lacked. The leads didn't really have any chemistry. I felt nothing. Even though, yes, maybe that was a good strategy to try to have more of that to make us care about the relationship. I don't think you had the chemistry, whether that is, whether that's an indictment on talent or not. I'm not necessarily saying that, but somewhere in the execution, we didn't have what we needed to have to make that strategy work. In the first film, you're like, okay, well, they really didn't explain the Crow and how this happens, like how this happens and the relationship between Eric and the Crow and how he was allowed to come back and the why he was able to come back and how these crows, the Crow effectively revives people and does this whenever the Crow decides to do this. They didn't really explain that in the first movie. So you know what? We're going to do it in this movie. We're going to deep dive into that a little bit. We're going to have a story about that, and we're going to try to develop that, and we're going to try to get you to understand what happens on the other side of the Crow. And we didn't have the creativity. We didn't have the talent. We didn't have the ability to execute that. And ultimately, that's the biggest problem with this movie. I felt absolutely nothing. And to me, that is the biggest difference for me between the first Crow and this Crow. The first Crow, I felt something. It had a sense of style. It had a sense of charisma. It had an energy to it. It had a mystique about it because Brandon Lee had died on set and there was all these other things that happened and all this stuff in the background. That movie, whether you like it or not, for better or for worse, it has a mystique about it. It has an energy about it. It has a look about it that's distinct. If you saw pictures, just shots from The Crow, you know that's The Crow, 1994. If you see a picture of Brandon Lee perched there on the side of the building and it's all dark and we're seeing a grim night or whatever, you know that that's The Crow, 1994. Whoever said this looks like a CW movie, exactly. Indistinguishable from anything that you see on the CW. And the key word there is indistinguishable. The Crow is distinct. 1994 Crow is distinct. You know what that is. You know what that looks like. You know what that was about. It was memorable. This, not at all. Not at all. Everything from top to bottom is completely forgettable. And sometimes you can't always explain it, right? Like sometimes you can't always explain charisma. You can't always explain energy. You can't always explain the intangibles. And sometimes two people can do the exact same damn thing. They can be in a room full of the same people and do the exact same damn thing, tell the exact same damn joke. But the person who tells the joke with the charisma and the energy and has the pizzazz and had a memorable delivery, you're going to remember that person. You're going to probably laugh at that and not going to laugh at the person who just lacked any of that. And I think that is the best assessment, non-spoiler, I can make. And I've got a lot of specific examples, but this just lacked anything. It lacked an energy. It lacked purpose. It lacked creativity. It lacked any of the intangibles that you need for a movie to really rise above just the bare bones of what it is. Characters, story, anything like that. Sure, when you have all that on paper, that's great, but that's only half the battle. That's only half the battle. You need the other part of that too. You need the energy. You need the look. You need the charisma. You need to make an impact. And this isn't going to make an impact. This isn't going to do anything memorable. Nobody is going to remember this shit. And what makes me sad is that, like, no, not even really sad, but like, I was so like angry with this movie. I went back and was like, okay, well, but you know what? What if I'm being unfair? Let me read the Crow graphic novel. Let me read that because maybe this mirrors more of the graphic novel than the original does. Maybe there's a reason why they did this. Maybe there's a reason why this team walked into this game with this game plan. Maybe there's some method to the madness here, and I'm just not getting it. And I read The Crow, the graphic novel by James O'Barr. And honestly, if you haven't read that, and you're just a fan of the Crow movies, but you really haven't read the source of where it comes from, I highly recommend it, man. That shit it has some great artwork. It's very angry and grieving and rage-filled and all of that kind of stuff, but It's energetic. It's memorable. I vividly will not forget some of the artwork that I saw in it and some of the stuff that James O'Barr was talking about. And he wrote The Crow because he lost a woman that he was about to marry. That's what the whole thing was about. So you can feel his confusion about it, his anger about it, his strife with losing somebody that was so important to him, and then ultimately his acceptance of it, but still a person in pain. All of that is made apparent in the graphic novel. It's the best Crow anything that exists. You know, I highly recommend you read that. And all that to say that this movie didn't have none of that shit in it. This movie didn't have any of that. It didn't capture the essence of that. It didn't even feel like that's what it was trying to do. It didn't feel like it was trying to capture the essence of that whatsoever. Or maybe it thought it did. Maybe it thought that they somewhat captured the pain that Eric was going through and things like that. But I sure as hell didn't see it the way that this was written. It couldn't focus on anything. It couldn't focus on that long enough to give us that. So, yeah, it just sort of just made me even more mad. It was like, man, dude, like I get trying to update something, but at least try to capture the essence of something that of your source material. I think the first Crow did that. The 1994 Crow did that more than this Crow did, as with respect to the graphic. Sorry, let me silence my phone. Of course, everybody wants to message me during the podcast. Sorry about that. It's on silent now. But all that to say, yeah, I just was very, very disappointed in this, but not even to the point to where it's like, oh, it aroused some sort of like extreme feelings in me. I was so disappointed that I just felt nothing watching it. I just felt absolutely nothing sitting there watching it, except, God, this was so misguided. And they thought they were trying to fill in the holes of the first movie, but really they didn't feel anything. It was like they were trying to fill something, but they dug a deeper hole and just created a bigger void. But the goal was to fill something. How did we get a deeper hole when we were supposed to fill one? But that's somehow mind-bogglingly what this movie did.
So what it was doing, Jastin, is to fill that hole, though, they had to dig another hole to fill, like to get the dirt to put in the other hole. And they just kept doing that and gone, wait, oh no, now there's a hole over here. So then they went and dug another hole to fill that with dirt, and they just kept walking around making holes.
Yes, that's what it felt like. That's exactly what happened.
I mean, I'm on record saying the first Crow movie sucks. They all suck. If you really look at it, and I've watched all 5 Crow movies, I've watched the TV series. The only thing I haven't done is read the fucking comic like Jastin. They all suck. They're all the same thing. If you ever, nothing pisses me off more than when somebody goes, the first Crow is a classic, but then they talk bad about one of the other ones. They're like, no, the Crow Salvation is the one that sucks. No, motherfucker. They're the same movie. It's all the same shit over and over again. We've gotten 5 movies of essentially the same fucking thing. Now, if you want to be honest with yourself and say, hey, but I remember the first one better because, you know, Jason Lee died making it. Okay, be honest. That's why most people have quote unquote fond memories of it. Because it's not the actual movie itself. It sucks. It sucks so bad. And I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but Jason Lee's doing a lot of weird bullshit in that movie.
Brandon.
What did I say? I said Jason Lee, didn't I? Jason Lee's still alive. My bad.
Everyone's panicking that's listening right now. Like, when did he die?
But yes, Brandon Lee is doing a bunch of weird bullshit. There's one time where he's like, but what if I'm not alive, but I'm dead? But what if I'm dead being alive? Woohoo! Then like does a weird fucking crab walk. Like while he's standing there talking to Ernie Hudson, and he does a weird crab walk and literally goes, oh. The fuck is that movie? There are just scenes. There are just scenes where he's like, I'm on my quest for revenge. After this sick guitar solo, like plays guitar on the roof of a building. It's a bad movie. Let's be real, people. It's a bad movie. People were trying to tell me, but the music is nothing. It's boring ass music. And everybody's like, well, you just wouldn't understand. Mortal Kombat, if I'm remembering correctly, came out the same year as The Crow. I remember Mortal Kombat soundtrack. I'll remember this bullshit. So don't hit me with none of that. That just people don't want to be honest with themselves. They're wrapped up in the mystique and the tragic nature of that is the behind the scenes of this movie. And once you remove that, once you remove those elements, is what you get in all the other movies. There's a reason why nobody will say anything good about any other Crow movie, because they are the same movie without the tragedy and the mystique. And you get every other thing in this franchise. And then you get to 2024. 30 years after the first Crow movie. Damn, they shouldn't have done it. Oof. Oof. It's just a soulless, devoid, misinterpretation of A, of what it is to be in love, B, what it is to be a human being, and what it is to lose people in your lives. What was that opening monologue of this movie when the horse is stuck in the barbed wire fence? And he's just like, if you ever watch somebody you love die, you'll just always be sad forever, or whatever the fuck he was saying. And all this other stuff while he's talking about his horse or whatever. Like, was that not just a very jarring way of trying to do that, of like doing that combination of horse and monologue that was about his dying girlfriend? Like, that's a very weird juxtaposition, because you know he's the Crow, so you know Shelley's gonna die, but they're juxtaposing that over the scene with the horse. That also, let's be real, the horse's wounds weren't lethal. That horse would have survived. So that was also a weird thing with it. But like, also like, did you see the scars he had on his hands later in the movie that were from the barbed wire? Do you know how fucking deep that shit would have to go to scar that fucking bad? It's ridiculous. But it goes to what I was saying with this movie. This movie doesn't know what the fuck it is at any given point. Is this movie a supernatural John Wick? It wants to be. Is this movie The Crow? It wants to be. Is this movie a movie? It wants to be. But at no point does it succeed at anything. You have this story that too many elements could have just been solved by like using the cloud. Like, why when she got that message, did she just go, oh no, I have to run away. So let me put my phone in this safe to keep this video safe from the bad guys. Have you not heard of iCloud, motherfucker? Just send it to people. Just send it to everybody. Send it to, you know what I mean? Email it to yourself. It's like there's so many ways you could protect the video or ensure that you have the video to where you don't have to leave your phone when you leave. But then, because this movie doesn't structurally know how to write it or like to maintain itself, the video ultimately doesn't become that important, really. Like, that's the motivation for them to like kill the people and to do this and that. But like, is the bad guy really under any threat of the video getting out, really? No. So why stress that the villain is so worried that the video is going to get out? That it'll just ruin everything for him. Because it won't. It doesn't. He just gets into a weird crow fight. Kinda. Ish. Maybe. Oh, so Jastin, is that something from the comic books? That the crow fights the devil man?
Nope.
Oh, so they just made that shit up.
Yep.
Because I know that there was supposedly a character from the comics that was like trying to steal his powers.
That might have been in a later comic because there is a City of Angels comic. There are other graphic novels after the Crow, but the main after the main Crow storyline. But the main Crow storyline, no, it plays a lot like the first film. He's just, he has powers, they don't, and ultimately he kills everyone involved, and that's it. That's very much how the comic book plays out.
So there's no Crowverse?
Hell no.
So they just made that up too?
Yep. Unless it comes from a later comic. It didn't come from the James O'Barr graphic novel. It didn't come from that.
Damn, man, I gave this movie too much credit. I thought that they were at least bringing in some of the elements from the comics that the first movie didn't. Because, 90s adaptations of comic books were the loosest of adaptations. So I kind of thought that this was them like adding things from the comics, but also trying to keep it with what they were doing and just butchering everything. I didn't know they were just making all of it up.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I can gather from the graphic novel that I read. And it's funny, like you were talking about the horse and the barbed wire and the monologue at the beginning when he was talking about when someone dies, that monologue gives an excerpt from James O'Barr's opening kind of dialogue he sort of has at the beginning of the Crow graphic novel. So that's in there. And the scene with the horse and the barbed wire, that's also in the graphic novel. But the context isn't the same. It doesn't happen at that same point like it happened in the movie, where they tried to mix those things together and have it mean something about a trauma point for Eric. That's not really the context in the graphic novel. The graphic novel, it's not like it was a point of trauma, like, oh, Eric saw this and this trauma here in his childhood led to this. It wasn't really like that in the graphic novel. The event happens in the graphic novel, but it's just to illustrate a point. But he's already the Crow, and it's almost like it's illustrating a point of something about death or something like the inevitability of death and stuff. It has nothing to do with being a trauma point for Eric in that way. It has a completely different context to the graphic novel. But it was in here.
So I know you said there's no Crow-averse, but in the graphic novel, does he have to like upgrade his Crow powers? Does he have like baby Crow powers? And then he has to sacrifice himself to get full Crow powers?
No, there is no red blood Crow and black blood Crow like it was in this movie. All of the, I don't know, we're kind of straddling the line of spoilers here. I mean, but like,
I don't give a fuck.
No, there's no red blood and black blood Crow. So there wasn't any of that.
I mean, I give up.
Because why the hell would there be that? The whole point is supposed to be something so bad happens. The Crow brings this person back to life because of the love that they had. And because of the thing that was messed up, to come back and fix it. That's supposed to be part of the magic of it. The Crow makes this decision and already knows that this person really loved the other person. There is no test of love. The reason why the Crow brings them back is because they loved already.
Oh, yeah,
there is no test.
That does make it worse.
WTF?
Really,
what were they doing here?
Yeah, that actually was a terrible point in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of glad you guys paid attention to this movie better than I did. I didn't remember that's why he had to do the two crows. I just remember that he did two crows. Like he was the Crow and then he was the Crow 2.0. Like, so thanks for bailing me out of that one. I didn't remember that's why. That it was the Crow test. I forgot about that. So, I mean, I guess I need to be more fair to the first Crow and the second and the third and the fourth and the TV shows. Apparently there is, like, you can do it worse. Like, apparently not everything is the same. This one's worse. It's just, it has nothing. It's devoid of everything. The action sequences, which added some of the stuff that you and me talked about what it should have done. And they do it once. Like in the whole movie, they do it once. Like they just kind of have him get killed a bunch at the beginning. And then they were like, all right, now you're a super Crow. You know, you've unlocked your true Crow form. And now you can not die over and over again. You'll actually heal. Or whatever the fuck. I don't remember what the fuck they were doing. But then they did that once. And then it's just kind of the most anticlimactic ending ever. Also, like, I think you guys are unfair when you say this is the CW-fication of the Crow franchise. Because you know what? The CW's done a few things I like. Okay. I've watched all of Supernatural. It's all right for the most part. First 5 seasons, spectacular. You know, they did Smallville. The first 5 seasons that were really good. Then they did 5 more that 3 of them sucked and then 2 of them were some of the worst shit you could ever watch on television. But hey, I still watched them. You know, they did that Nancy Drew TV series that was really bad that I watched all of, and I kind of hate myself for watching all of it, but I still watched it. You know, they did that. You know, they've done some stuff. That's really all I can think about at this moment. But you know what? They've done stuff. What the fuck did this movie do? Nothing. So you're being a little harsh when you say it's the CW-fication of it. You should apologize to the CW, even though they're getting rid of all that shit and they're not even doing what they used to do anyway. You know, the thing that made them successful. So, which I guess, once again, then makes it apt that it's the CW-fication of it. Because they're like, oh man, all those things that made The Crow successful-ish, let's just not do any of those. So maybe it is accurate. Who even knows anymore? I don't. I don't think that anybody can actually say. I'm really rambling at this point. Spoiler or recommendation scores, whatever the fuck the next section is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recommendations and score.
Nah. I'll recommend it. I mean, you know, it's not the worst thing I saw this year. But you know, it's real damn close. I don't think this is Borderlands bad. But I don't think that this is tarot good. I'll give it a 3. 3 3D tattoos on your shoulder out of 100. Jastin, what about you?
I do not recommend it. Also, God, what a bad version of The Crow. I mean, and then it just was made worse because I read the graphic novel and realized just how bad it was. And I totally disagree with you about the first film. I think I'm completely on the other side of that. I watched it before I watched this Crow movie, and I still liked it. And I wasn't sitting there going, oh, Brandon Lee, that's why I like this. And especially after reading the graphic novel, Brandon Lee did a respectable job. He looked like the Crow. He acted like the Crow. The Crow was very much like that. He would say weird shit and do this quirky stuff. And when he was going and getting revenge, he was talking shit to the bad guys and the drug dealers and shit like that, just like he was in the first movie. He very much resembled the Crow that I read in the graphic novel. So it gave me an even more respect for his performance, you know, and that's just whether he died or not. I think he embodied the Crow more than Skarsgård did, because I saw none of the Crow from the graphic novel. I saw none of the Eric from the graphic novel in this movie. I mean, he wasn't talking shit. He wasn't speaking in crazy riddles or saying things. Like, he wasn't doing any of that cool shit that the Crow does that makes him stand out as a distinct anti-hero. You know, he wasn't doing any of those things. It didn't have that dark brooding. I mean, I guess it looked kind of dark, CW dark, but this didn't look like a major movie production dark. This isn't the dark we know.
Yeah, so what are you talking about?
A major movie production is capable of. There wasn't
a single light bulb in the Crowverse. How could you get any darker than that?
But man, it didn't have. It wasn't the good kind of dark. It felt like the cheap kind of dark. Like, it's gonna be dark, and that's exactly what they did. It was the equivalent of unscrewing a light bulb and going, okay, it's dark now. Shut up. That's like when the mom, you know, when you want a new toy and the mom says, man, you got G.I. Joe at home. Shut up. You know, that's what this felt like. It just felt like they said, look, we unscrewed a few light bulbs. Shut up. But this didn't look major movie dark. It didn't have a distinct look dark like the first Crow had. It didn't feel like any energy was put into anything. Not even the look of it. So, nah, man, this is not good. I would argue, it's definitely not tarot good, because this is a bigger disappointment. You had 30 years between this one and the other Crow to do something better, and you couldn't, and you were just completely inferior in every way possible. With all this new technology, with all this time to think about the mistakes that the first movie made, and you could have corrected some of those mistakes, and you did absolutely none of those things. So I think it's worse than a movie like Borderlands. You know, it's worse. It fails worse than that movie does. It fails worse. You have the source material. The source material was one fucking graphic novel. How many Borderland games have there been? You had one job.
I think
you
3.
Had one book.
There's like 3 and some like expansions or whatever.
And that's a video game that's more modern with characters with distinct looks and familiarity and stuff like that. You had one job with this. You had one book that one graphic novel you were adapting the story from, and you failed. And you had 30 years. You had a 30-year start on it from the other film, where you could have looked at that film and really thought about what you were doing here. And you have this big game plan and just failed at everything. So no, man, I think it's more disappointing. It's more disappointing. It sucks. Please go see something else that's showing in theaters, or go see something better that you already saw. It would just be a better use of your money. Not even the sound editing was good. It didn't even benefit me to be in the theater watching it. Nothing ever happened sound-wise to make me go, oh man, I'm glad I was in here to see this. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it gets...
Jastin, I think you're really forgetting about that one scene where like the crows were squawking.
In the Crow verse?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Did you not like that Dolby Digital surround sound of that crow swirling around to hit him in the back?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. I didn't either. So, I was just asking.
So yeah, this is going to get read the one graphic novel that James Barr wrote, and please just skip this movie out of 100.
Heather, what about you?
I mean, the thing is, like, Jastin, you talking about like the source material and everything like that. This is a case where that probably definitely would have helped me because like I did think that like the whole thing in the 1994 Crow with him doing like the riddles or the poetry or the haikus or whatever it was he was doing, like I didn't like that in it because I was like, why is he doing that? Like, because it felt like they made that a character trait of his, but we didn't see that was something he might have done before he was the Crow. So for me, it just felt jarring for him to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, why, what is this choice? Why are they doing that? So knowing that that's kind of how it was written in the source material makes me a little more forgiving of that, you know, because for me, that was something that like, and not to say that I think Bill Skarsgård was like a more fantastic Crow, but the way that he portrayed him in that brooding manner throughout, instead of like being like silly in moments when you think he shouldn't be silly, like what Sterling was talking about when he's like getting shot and he's just moving across the room because he can't die or whatever. Like, I think that based on like the nature of who the Crow is and what the Crow is doing and what his mission is, I just feel like that's a weird choice too. So I was like, I appreciated that they didn't do that part of it in the new one. You know what I mean? Because for me, I was like, that makes more sense for that not to be part of the Crow's character. But I'm apparently wrong because like you said, that's just stuff that he does in the graphic novel and how he was written. So it is good to know that. And that being said, it actually does make this movie even more disappointing because like, and I am glad that you brought up that point you did about, you know, Red Crow versus Black Crow, like that we'll talk about. Cause I'm like, why? Like, there was just so many unnecessary things happening here. And again, as much as I really like Bill Skarsgård as an actor, I mean, this is not going up there on my favorites of his at all. And I agree about their chemistry. Like, I think they tried, but if I'm being honest, like, I just don't think FKA Twigs is leading lady caliber to the degree that she needed to be for this particular role. I've only seen her in one other movie. She wasn't a main character. So this is the first time I've seen her as like a main lead character. And I just didn't think that it was there. Like, for me, it felt like she was very clearly reading a script and memorizing lines. At least with Bill Skarsgård, I feel like there were moments when he felt like he was emoting a way that a person would emote. And that might just be my own take. I just felt like their energy didn't match as far as like their back and forth dialogue. Like, one felt more believable than the other for me. Granted, that's her main job is not acting. So I'm not going to falter too much for that. I do think it was an interesting choice though, to put this pairing together because yeah, I don't know. It just, I just don't really feel like her experience as an actress yet is quite there to make this a believable performance for me. So yeah, all of that being said, and like just all the things that they were trying to put in this movie to make it work and to make you care about the story is exactly why you don't care about the story, because they're trying to do too much, but not saying anything at the same time. So, no, I don't recommend this movie. I don't think it was good. And it's weird to say, like, I feel like my score is so much higher than you guys just because of how, you know, how much you despised it, and also being able to compare it to the source material for you, Jastin, at least. Like, I'm giving this movie a 10. And I feel like that's like 10 is super hella low, but I just feel like it's going to sound crazy. I gave it a 10 when you guys gave it a 1 and a 3. Like, it just sounds insane to be like, Heather, I cannot believe you gave a score as high as 10 for this movie. I didn't hate it as badly as you guys did, but I did hate it. Like, I did not like this movie. I want to make that clear. But I gave it at least a 10. You know, what was my score? It was going to be like 10. 10 pushing him back to reality in the water over and over again out of 100.
I mean, shit, just say you loved it. Quit fronting.
My thing is, I don't even remember what I gave Tarot. I mean, to me, it's kind of, I disliked it the same amount, probably, for me. But again, just my humble opinion as the Crow expert, as you say.
Yeah. Cinescore is a 5. Just because we round up. It should have been a 4, but it's a 5 because we round up. And because Heather just completely destroyed the curve. Just obliterated it.
Even when I go super low on a movie, it just never feels like it's low enough to please you when it's a bad movie.
If I'm thinking right, because of you, Heather, this movie does have a better Cinescore than Tarot. It does.
Does it?
We gave Tarot a 4. You giving this movie a 10 pushed it up to a 5. So because of you, Heather, forever 4th, this movie's better than Tarot. And it's not. But because of you, it is.
I see. I feel like, why do I feel the need that I have to justify giving a 10 score for a movie? Like, that's
so
a
damn
really
high.
low score.
Think about it like this. You gave a score 10 times higher than Jastin and 3.3 repeating times higher than me.
Okay, well, again, I'm going in not knowing anything about the source material. Like, I disliked the first movie, but I didn't dislike it as much as you did, Sterling. And I didn't like it as much as you did, Jastin. So in either regard, there was going to be something about this movie you weren't going to like, because it's not as good as the original, but that's not saying much for Sterling's side. And that's definitely saying like a hell of a lot for Jastin's side, because you do really like the first one. So I just feel like, you know, I don't know. I don't need to justify my score of 10, guys. It's a 10. It's not like I said, let's give it an 85 or something like that.
Shit, you might as well.
And to be fair, like, is it better than Tarot? Probably yes. It really, all biases aside, it probably is a better movie than Tarot. If you look at the mechanics, the overall acting, you know, if you really dissected those films from top to bottom, is this a better movie? Yes, but it should be. It's got a bigger budget. It has better actors in it. It has, you know, it's got the name brand. There's more talent worked on this than the Tarot movie. So is it pound for pound a better movie? Yes. So I think your score is fine. It is a better movie than Tarot. This just disappointed me more than Tarot because of what you said, my knowledge of those other things, you know?
Yeah, like you said, you were actually just, you were saying before this, you just were angry at this movie for what it did. I was just kind of like, oh, well, this was dumb. So I feel like my reaction and my score reflect more my initial feeling, and yours reflects yours. So it's like, again, a 10 is not great, but as much as I don't like it, I wasn't angered by how much I didn't like it, or annoyed by how much I didn't like it.
Yeah, I am giving it much less points. I'm giving it lesser points, not necessarily based on the quality of the film. Those are emotional points that it lost from me because of just how overall I feel about this one versus the first one versus the graphic novel. So those are emotional points. But honestly, if a non-biased critic in me, it's probably 40% movie. You know what I mean? My score is more of an emotional score. If I was being objective about it, 40%. It's probably the highest this would go, unbiased.
And see, the funny thing is like, I'm kind of doing that just for the sheer fact that if I was realistically giving the first Crow a score, it'd be a 15 or a 20. And so to me, this is also a big drop off. But also I don't care. Because I don't think anything, at least cinematically, has been good in this franchise. Because like I watched the 1994's The Crow right before, or the night before watching this one. I was like, God, I hate this movie. I hate this movie so fucking bad. And I'm not going to lie, Jastin, when you're like, man, it's hella accurate to the graphic novel, I'm just sitting there thinking, fuck, I hate the graphic novel. Because like everything you're describing that he does, I'm just like, I fucking hated it. Like, I just hated all that shit when he's just like, why does the dead man have 10 toes? 'Cause he's me. Like doing a Zoidberg then across the screen. Like, I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I like how he sounds like your diabetes voice guy.
By Walter Brimley? No.
Parts of that.
I guess I get a little bit of that. We didn't have the diabetes. My name's
Because I got 10 toes.
Walter Brimley, and I've got diabetes. Remember that guy in Cocoon? I think I'm older than he was in Cocoon or some shit like that. Like, it's astounding. He was that man has perpetually looked 85 for most of his life. Oh, I'm never reading the graphic novel now. Jastin, you have officially unsold me from ever even attempting to read this shit. Just because you're like, man, it's so hella accurate to the first movie. I'm like, oh no. That sounds like my own personal hell.
Well, damn. Sorry about that. Well, I don't know. If you didn't like any of those characteristics, though, then yeah, probably nothing about the graphic novel is going to change your mind on that. But it's funny that whereas you saw those things as, why is he doing this? This is crazy. He shouldn't be doing this. I thought those were kind of one of the things that made The Crow different. I thought that was like an endearing quality about it, was that he reveled in the revenge that he was taking against them. He enjoyed killing them. He wanted them to feel like victims and feel helpless and to feel like there was nothing they could do and they could be toyed with in that way. He wanted them. I looked at it as it was him kind of doing to them what happened to him and his wife. That's how they did them, talking shit to them, saying weird shit, toying with them, doing whatever they wanted. They were treating them pretty bad. So I felt like that was an extension of the revenge. It wasn't enough to just quickly kill them. He wanted to revel in that, and part of that was the anger and everything too.
Is that something that you like got more from the graphic novel or from the first movie or the 94 movie, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, man, it's hard to go back to like my feelings when I first watched it, but I would say it's still pretty consistent. But just even watching it like this time last week, that was something that was, I guess, I don't know if that came when I first watched the movie or it just came to me watching the movie last week, but that was the correlation I always made with how the Crow acted. Yes, he was there for revenge. Yes, he was angry. Yes, he was sad and he was suffering. But the other part of that is that Eric, but he's still Eric. He was still a person. He was still a good person. He was a cool person. He had the relationship with that Sarah girl. He was still a musician. He had, they were, before this happened to them, the understanding was that him and Shelley were just good people. So I think the Crow that you see is a mixture of two things. There's the vengeance thing of and the confidence of I'm immortal, you can't kill me, I can kill you type of thing, and him wanting to revel in those kills because of just the sheer awfulness of what those guys did to him and his wife. But then there's the Eric part, that's the good person part. And I think what the first movie was trying to do was give you a balance of both of them. And I'm not even saying that they succeeded at all of it. I still think they could have done a better job. I like what you said, Heather, about how they didn't really develop a lot of them beforehand. So that's why you could not, in those scenes where you're watching the Crow, go, I don't understand, because was Eric like this before? Or is this a reflection of who he is now and you didn't really understand? I would agree that is one of the flaws of the movie, is that you didn't get to see that. In the first Crow, you're just kind of thrown into the crime scene.
Right.
And the crime has already happened. And then all of a sudden, Eric is coming out of the ground. And he doesn't even know what happens until he has that flashback, till he goes to the place and then has that flash of everything happening, which is a great fucking scene where he's flashing back and he's sort of like mimicking how his body was. And then like when he goes out the window, he kind of flips and almost throws himself out, but then comes back in. I thought that was one of the cooler parts of the film. But like we don't know anything until of that happened to him or who he was or anything. And all we get is bits and flashes of it. So I can understand where you're coming from with that. That to me was one of the flaws of the first movie. We didn't get those enough. We got a little bit, but not enough to definitively say, okay, this is who Eric is, which they tried to fix in this movie, but still failed. But no, I totally get where you're coming from.
Went the other direction. Yeah.
And
spoilers.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to technically move the fuck out of the last one. Now keep going.
Yeah. And the reason that I asked that question is because, like you said, like you always kind of made the correlation of like, oh yeah, he's being like that for certain reasons and everything. And I guess that is sort of a matter of perspective of how you feel about the movie, the 94 movie, because for me, like I did feel like it was jarring to be like, oh, this is his personality coming through, because like you said, we didn't really see much of him before the tragedy happens. And so it felt jarring and like it didn't connect for me that he was like, oh, that's him just reveling in the revenge he's getting on people. It felt like, unfortunately, like the movie is very 90s coded in a way where I feel like when they do these action movies with all the cool action stuff, a lot of times the dialogue in movies wasn't the best. And so for me, I feel like it just felt to me like it was like, oh, is this somebody like trying to be funny in an action movie? Unfortunately, that was just kind of the vibe it gave me, because I didn't feel like I knew anything about this character before. So I just didn't know that was something you had picked up, like that was traits he was doing based off of what you read, or if it was from what you got when you saw the movie. So, and again, that is a matter of perspective and a matter of like how your viewing of the movie in general and how well you liked that. Because for me, I'm like, I wasn't the biggest fan of the 94 Crow, but you liked it a lot more than I did. So, and that could be because you got what they were doing with that better, or you kind of understood what they were trying to do with that better than I did. You know what I'm saying? And that's also because you read a lot of comics, you read a lot of stories like this where you've probably picked up on that's what they were doing. I saw that movie when I was very young. I didn't see it again. The first time I saw it, I was probably 10 or younger. And then I didn't see it again until very recently. So it's like, at the time, I probably was just like, oh, that's weird. And then even rewatching it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember thinking this was weird, but not really like picking up anything new because I think I already had in my mind how I felt about the movie. But yeah, either way, all that to say, like, I just don't, I think if they had maybe given us a little bit more of Eric's personality before the tragedy, it wouldn't have felt so jarring that he was doing those weird moments for me.
No. And this is the last thing I'll say on it and we can move on. I'll try to be quick about this part. But no, I totally agree with you. And I would say when I'm looking at the first movie, like, I'm not saying the first movie, like, even if I scored that movie, I wouldn't give it an A. I would say it's probably about a 75, somewhere 75, 80. And where I would have docked it in points is exactly the thing that you're talking about. I think it would have helped to understand more about who Eric was beforehand, to understand kind of how he was acting as the Crow or how the Crow made him different. The only thing that I can say, and I guess maybe this is why I accepted it a little more, other than the reasons that you talked about, some of that could be very true as well, just with my reading of different things and understanding of these characters. But in the scenes that he has with Ernie Hudson and the scenes that he has with that little girl, Sarah, I feel like in those scenes, that's Eric. That's him. That's Eric. So very warm and seemingly understanding how he was towards that girl, Sarah, or how he was towards somebody he liked or somebody he connected with, like Ernie Hudson, the jokes back and forth, joking with him or saying things to him and, speaking with him and kind of being funny with him and stuff like that. I thought they had a decent rapport in that movie. Could the lines have been better? Probably. But I felt like in those scenes, you get Eric. And when he's the Crow killing people and going up against these criminals and stuff like that, it was a completely different kind of way that he approached that than it was how he approached people that he was being more human with. So I feel like there's two sides to the Crow, and that's what they showed. But like you said, what would have brought that all together? Having an understanding of Eric a little bit more, either way, helps all of those scenes. So,
yeah, because I think, action movies in the 90s, like, were a dime a dozen, it feels like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it just feels like there's so many where it was like, sweet, you're there to see the action and who wins and the villains getting beat by the protagonist. And you just want to see the shootouts or the fight outs or the chase or whatever it is. And you don't really care about the story or the dialogue or the fleshing out a character as much back then. So it's like, I didn't expect them to do more than that. So for me, like, I guess I expected, like, it wasn't like, I just didn't expect more from a 90s action movie, if you will, especially at the time when I saw it. I didn't realize it was also based off of a graphic novel. So for me, I'm like, it just felt to me like, oh, this is just another movie that's trying to have like funny or deep moments in an action movie when nobody cares about that. But apparently they should have, based off of what the origin of this entire story was based off of.
Mm-hmm.
They are called fight outs from now on.
I don't know how else I should have said that in the moment. I'm sure that there's a very obvious word I should have been using.
I mean, a fight scene?
Yeah.
Or a fight sequence?
I liked it.
Let's have a fight out. Let's watch that fight out.
It's not even like a fight off. It's a fight out.
Yeah, a fight out. A shootout, a fight out. Makes sense. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I just wanted to add that real quick.
So yeah. Yeah, more fight outs in the movie. I mean, I guess it's like if we're gonna like look at these movies and stuff like that. I mean, to me, The Crow is an example of everything that was wrong with 90s action movies. They were nonsensical. They thought they didn't have to have a structure. They didn't have to have a plot. They were just like, hey, we're going to do some fights. We're going to do some shootings. We're going to do some shit. And that's all you need. No, there's a reason why there's good ones and bad ones. And that tends to be the difference, is how much care you put in everything else in your movie. And I think, you know, the original Crow suffers of a lack of everything. And on top of that, the action sequences and the fight scenes aren't, the fight outs are not that interesting, even for the 90s. But then you look at this one, and somehow they're worse. You have 30 years of fight choreography in movies, 30 years of filming fight sequences, 30 years of filming action sequences, 30 years of people blending plot and action more efficiently in movies. 30 years of developing a formula for movies like this. And you somehow go, you know what? Let's just do a worse job than they did in the 90s. And not even a good example of it from the 90s. I mean, that's what's so absurd about this movie, is how at times does it look and feel worse. Like, did that fight scene at the opera, also, how did no one there not hear a single fucking gunshot?
Literally, that was what I was thinking the entire time.
Yeah.
Come on, we all been to a play, right? You've been to a musical, you've been to a play, you've been to a show, right?
Yeah.
Come on. They ain't that loud.
If you can hear a screaming baby from across the way, you can hear gunshots going nonstop for sure.
Yeah, it's absurd. Like, to the degree at which it was happening in this movie, too. It's absurd. But, like, also, Jastin, did he not feel like a bad version of Dante from Devil May Cry? Like, you know how the opening sequence of a Devil May Cry game is always Dante just getting stabbed by something, or, you know what I mean? And fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I can see exactly where you're coming from with that. Yep. He takes damage and acts like it hurts. And then he just goes, haha, not really. And then just
He's just like,
kills everything.
he's just like, come on, guys. Devil May Cry. Got the sword in me. Like, it was, that's all it was. It just over and over again. And like, and for that to be the penultimate / only real version of that in this movie is just kind of weak. And like, what was the point of cutting off their heads and tossing them into the crowd at the opera? Like, it didn't add anything. It just was dumb.
Yeah.
Like, you added nothing to anything. I just, I just really, like I said, I have no love. I have no love for the 1994 Crow movie. And somehow you were disrespectful to a movie I don't like. How do you succeed at being worse than a movie I don't like? I mean, just do one thing. Just do one thing I like. Like, just do one thing. Have one scene in your movie that I could go, I really liked that scene. And you would have a leg up on the fucking original in my eyes. Because the only thing I like in the first Crow movie is Ernie Hudson. I like his portrayal of that character. That's it. That's the only thing I like. You just have to beat out to be liking a character.
Although it is Ernie Hudson, and it's hard to beat you liking him in anything.
I mean, that's fair. But just do one thing. I don't even have just a better soundtrack. This music ultimately, I feel, is just as forgettable as the first one. I don't remember any of it. Is it a lot of FKA Twigs songs? Who knows? I don't. Jastin, what else you got?
No, I mean, you make some good points. And see, the funny thing is that I think what the game plan of this movie was going in was, okay, where did the first movie have flaws? And the biggest flaws in the first movie, all I think are like character development things. You know what I mean? Like, just like what we talked about with Eric and the relationship with Shelley, we got flashes of their relationship. We got little bits and pieces here and there, but we didn't get a full picture. They kept it to flashes. But shoot, maybe they were smart for that, because here we got a whole story of a relationship and it still sucked and didn't mean anything.
Well,
but
because there's a different, like, by having backstory doesn't mean you actually have a backstory. Just because you have scenes,
or an effective one.
Yeah, because just because you have scenes that are labeled backstory doesn't mean you have a backstory. It just means you're filming a bunch of shit we don't actually end up needing.
True. And especially when your backstory creates more problems than it does provide solutions. Like, the whole point of it is supposed to be to develop your characters. But if those developments don't coincide with like character motivations and things that happen later in the movie, then what the hell was the point of it? You should have just did it like the first Crow and had flashes then. If you don't know how to do it, don't do it. Don't do it. At least the 90s movies knew what it could and could not do, I guess. You know, kind of to your point, Heather, with back then they just weren't good at that kind of shit, or there weren't as many movies as good at doing those development things. So maybe they were like, well, I ain't that good about showing a romance on screen, so we're going to put that in the flashes. And I'm going to just keep this shit heavy with guns and the Crow talking shit and people getting killed and blood, because that's what I'm good at. I ain't good at that other part. So we just going to do this for that other part. Maybe sometimes you got to go with your strengths and weaknesses. And like this movie, where that first movie lacked development, it felt like this movie tried to say, you know what? We're going to come in and have this story, and you're going to really get to feel for the relationship of these characters. But we talked about it. They didn't really have the chemistry to help you really care or find the relationship meaningful. Because what is the whole point of this? When these two characters die, Eric and Shelley, when they die, the situation is supposed to be so fucked up that this supernatural crow, whose duty it is to carry these souls to the other world, goes, man, that was so fucked up. I am going to allow one of these people that were killed to come back to life to fix this, because it was so bad, the situation was so horrible, and they loved each other so much that their soul can't rest. So that's why me as the crow is doing this, to bring them back to life. Okay, all of that is great, but if you don't have a love story, if you don't have a situation, if you don't have the plot elements to justify this crow coming back and saying, man, this was so fucked up, I'm going to bring this person back to get revenge, then you've already fucked up this movie. You've already fucked it up. In the 90s movie, they were just about to get married, and Sherry was beaten up and raped, and just those fools just had their way with her in that movie. And then Eric had to watch it. He got shot up 1,000,000 times and tossed from a window, fell all the way down, felt every single part of it, and got killed. When you watched all of that in that movie, you're like, okay, damn, no wonder the crow fucking came back and brought Eric back. But when you look at this movie, it's like,
it wasn't earned.
well, yeah.
Wait.
Wow, it wasn't earned in the least bit. Like,
Wait,
okay, yes, they were both killed.
That you didn't believe that Baby Skarsgård and FKA Twigs were in love?
Hell no. And you know why? Because the writing didn't serve them. Because you got one character lying and being and not being forthcoming and misleading the other character. So
Jastin,
I couldn't even buy into the love to begin with.
The dialogue said that they were in love.
It sure did. It sure did. But I'm sorry, but that's not how love looks, guys.
But
that's not how love looks.
But the crow said they were in love.
I know, and I don't understand why the crow did it. Because I get the crow had to. Because the script says crow has to.
I mean, but the script said they were in love.
It sure did.
But
it said it a whole bunch of times. Said. But I needed it to do.
But
and it did not do.
Come on, Jastin. I mean, what more do you ever need from somebody? They just need to say that they love you. They don't ever have to actually show it, do anything, nothing like that, man. They just got to be like, yo, I love you.
The sad part is there are a lot of relationships that are like that, and I feel bad for them because it normally doesn't end well. And this one, it didn't end well for me. Like, because you had a character being misleading. So she's lying and not telling the whole truth, or feels like she can or whatever. So so right off the bat, there's issue with this relationship that doesn't get resolved. And then they get killed. And it was bad and everything, and it was sad and all that good stuff. So, okay, the crow comes back. But the whole point is supposed to be that the crow does this because these people really love each other, and the crow knows that, and the crow has accepted that already. And the situation is so bad, this is why it happens. But she wasn't even honest with this fool. She wasn't honest with Eric. She wasn't telling him the whole story. And so he kind of died not even knowing why he died. And a lot of that was her fault because she didn't tell him. I get that you're scared. I get you're running, but you're running with this person. He was running and doing and loving and not even fucking knowing why. Like, so I just had so many problems with that. It didn't feel like a love that justified the crow. It didn't feel like the pure love it needed to justify the crow giving Eric this second chance in the first place. And I just found that problematic. And then they thought they were smart and went, oh, well, Jastin, give us a second. Just be patient with us, Jastin, because this is going to be a plot point. Because Eric's love is going to be tested and he's not going to know what to do. And it's going to be like, does he really accept her now that he knows the truth or not? And it's going to be this big test for Eric. And that's going to be great because when he finally accepts it and becomes red blood or black blood crow, the super crow, black blood crow, his acceptance of her love makes him the full crow and everything. And then everybody's going to be on the same page. You're going to love it, Jastin, but it's stupid because it undermines the whole point of why the crow would do this in the first place. It undermines why the crow would pick Eric to do this in the first place. Like,
do you think
so? If it wasn't real love to begin with, and the love had to be earned from Eric's side, then why did the crow pick him in the damn first place?
Do you think that part of the problem with it was because that it wasn't a random crime? Like they were sought after, they were chased down, and whilst I think as a society as a whole, we're coming to understand that like drug addiction and things like that does not inherently make you a bad person. So like you can ignore those aspects of it and all this other stuff, but like it's just a weird problem for me because Hollywood has a very complicated history when it comes to stories that involve somebody selling their soul to the devil. And even though it wasn't her character that did it, cinematically speaking, with the history we have with movies, when your character is tied to somebody that sold their soul to the devil, you instantly get less sympathy from the audience. She had no control over it. She wasn't the one that made the deal. Her mom more or less sold her soul, for lack of a better word, into that world for all this stuff, right? But she joined that world and kind of made it her world while she was in it, then got freaked out and still stayed in that world, though. Just not directly with Devil Guy, but still stayed in like Devil Guy adjacent with a lot of the things that instantly makes your character less sympathetic. Now, is that fair or realistic or whatever? No, not necessarily. It shouldn't be. You should feel bad for somebody that is more or less soul got corrupted because someone else sold their soul to the devil and their mom sold them up the river too. Yes, that should be a sympathetic character, but weirdly in movies, it's not. It doesn't work. You don't have that sympathy. You don't get inherent sympathy. It taints your characters. And I think it is added to it in this movie. Because what's the big flaw in their love story? Her. And that's when you add extra bullshit, but also that's what taints all this other bullshit. Like you get that weird thing of it never fully congeals as to an actual love story. You know, and you kind of said it weirdly right, Jastin. As much as the original story suffers for lack of story, lack of love story, for better or worse, maybe it did do the smart thing. Because when they added a love story, they made it worse.
And to your point about just like the natural inclination of the audience, sometimes it's just easier to accept these characters are innocent. These characters are guilty. This is our good guy. The crow is going to kill the characters that are guilty. And here are good characters over here. The Crow is not going to kill those characters. The Crow is going to kill these characters. And sometimes a movie just works better when it's simple and these characters are innocent. But this got caught. It was just trying to be too cute. Like, we want them to be complex and not be perfect like they were in the first Crow movie. So we're going to have them be a little complex, but we want her to kind of have this thing. And I think you're right. Having that association with some characters that sold their soul, yes, that would have made us be less sympathetic towards her. But then it's compounded when our protagonist learns about this. And instead of him going, well, this wasn't really her, that motherfucker whispered and manipulated her, which he already knew about because another character explained that. So before he saw the video footage, so when he saw it, if he would have been like, you know what, that wasn't her, this is not her, she was manipulated, I'm still coming to get this motherfucker, maybe your audience would have accepted it. But when you got him brooding, going, oh no, she did it. Oh man, do I love this? Do I love this monster? Oh no, what about me now? Are my feelings real? Well, then of course your audience is going to act that way.
It's like they should have reversed those two scenes. Cause that was exactly my thought. I'm like, you already knew that it was the dude that like made her do that. Like, why are you having conflict right now? Like, they should have switched the scene when he found out from that other guy. Like, oh yeah, he was whispering things. Have that happen after you see the video. And then that at least makes that a little bit better.
Yeah, at least that makes more sense. Yeah, let him discover the video before he knows, oh, it was a manipulation. Then it's like, damn, man. And maybe then he could hate the fact that he doubted her even for a moment. And that motivates him more to even try to get this revenge. Or I don't know, if you were going to have her, but it's still problematic because what does Shelley learn in this story? She got Eric killed because she wouldn't be honest with him and wasn't forthcoming with him. And then when it's all said and done, Eric does all this bullshit and she gets to live. But what was the lesson that she learned? Did she grow? Did that character have an arc? Did she get to go, man, Eric is not alive? Was there a monologue at the end, an inner monologue or narration at the end where she's like, well, Eric had to sacrifice his life because I wasn't honest, because I could have been more honest. You know, now I'm alive and he's gone, but this started with me. Where was the responsibility of that character?
Well, it also adds, where's the responsibility of the person who is supernaturally manipulated into committing murder? Is that really a sin? To be supernaturally manipulated into committing murder? You're not doing it. That's not free will. That's not, any of those things. Like, because that's the whole point of sin, is that you have free will. Therefore, if you choose to sin, that's what makes sin bad, type of thing. And also there's the inherent aspect of sin. But I'm just saying, like, if some guy runs up to you and like hands you a knife and you're just like, huh? And like you're caught off guard and so the knife's in your hand, then he grabs your arm and stabs somebody with it because you're just like caught off guard. Are the police really going to come up to you and go, nah? No, and there's video evidence. I'm not even saying like it's like, no, somebody legitimately films this happening, the whole thing. Are they really going to come up to you and go, nope, you committed murder? But what about the guy that did all this stuff? He did not stab them. You did. The knife was in your hand. You were completely culpable. It is just you, only you, and no one. Like, that's not how this shit works.
Exactly.
It's the same.
Yes.
It's the same in this, especially like you guys said. He knew beforehand what the whisper meant. So how is she a fucking monster? Oh, she was supernaturally manipulated into killing somebody. Oh my God. How could I love somebody? Like, the fuck is that? Like, come on, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I want to propose something to you guys real quick.
Can I say one more thing to add to that? And then even the Crow man in the Crowiverse was like, you know where her soul is going. Like she's hell-bound. So even supernaturally, they think she's guilty too? I didn't understand that either.
Yeah, because that's what they're saying.
How come nobody is saying that she was innocent?
Because that's what Devil Man does. He corrupts people by whispering in their ear and forcing them to do something. And then that makes them sinful. Therefore, they go to hell in his place. That is the whole conceit of the villain's plot, is to force people to sin. Like, and it's not even to manipulate them into choosing sin. No. It is to force them to sin.
Yeah.
To take his place.
It's a straight up force.
Like,
and like, so when they're like, oh, she's hell bound and stuff, it's like, why? She's not, she was forced to do this. How come nobody is saying what was painfully obvious is that she was forced to do this? Why would her soul be hell bound? It just didn't make any sense.
It's like if a drug dealer walked around with a trank gun full of heroin and just shot heroin darts into people, getting them addicted to heroin, but you're just going, I can't believe they're addicted to heroin.
Exactly. It just made absolutely no damn sense. I wasn't even mad at her for that murder part. I was just upset with her for keeping this from him and them being like, oh, this is true love. And she never like would tell him why he was running or why his life was in danger or any of those things. That was very problematic to me. But the whole shit they were trying to act like, and you know how they justified it? And I'll let you talk, Sterling, after this one little point, was when Devil Man said, well, what was inside of her? He said something to the effect of those thoughts and some of that intent was already kind of there. All I did was motivate or push those things in order for her to perform the action. He said some sort of bullshit like that. And then it was like everybody in the universe just accepted, okay, she's guilty. That's how it was.
All right. I want to propose something to you guys. Let's start this movie, right? Shelly's out with her friends, accidentally bumps into a cop, drops her purse, drugs everywhere, gets sent to a rehab facility. There she meets a young Eric, also had issues with drugs. They just kind of, run away together. They start a new life. And they're kind of keeping each other in check, but also, still doing some drugs. They're just not like, I guess full on doing heroin. I don't know what the fuck they were doing. But you know what I mean? Like they're still doing some drugs, but they're keeping each other in check also. And then, one day they meet some guys some people at a club. Like a little altercation happens. They're just like, whatever. And they go home. And it turns out those people followed them, murdered them. And then you just have the crow. Don't do the double crow. None of that. Just have the crow. You can use most of the backstory they had in this movie and just put that at the beginning of, I guess, what was the original Crow movie to a degree. You know what I mean? Like, I know technically the gang members in the first Crow, they were going there because technically Shelley complained to the housing committee. I'm just saying, you can make it random, but you can still give them a backstory of like drugs and trying to run away from things in your past. You can just have Shelley trying to run away from the types of people and the corrupt influences of the life that her mom got her into because she was a piano prodigy. And you can have Eric having turned to drugs because of an abusive family and experiencing the death of his, I don't know, one true love, the horse, you know, and all those things. And so he does drugs to run away. You know, you could still add those elements from this movie as the backstory to the events from the first movie. And would that just, would that have just not been okay? Like at least okay?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It would have maybe not as been, still not as good in your eyes, Jastin, as the first movie. But you wouldn't have hated it.
Yeah.
Definitely. I like everything that you said. Definitely. And here's another idea. If, you know, why not just, how about we just go a different direction? She should have been the crow, not Eric. She should have been the crow.
I don't hate that either.
She fought, all of this is happening. Mom sells her soul, all of this kind of stuff. So you've got her battling with both sides of this. And then the whole rehab thing happens. She meets Eric. And falling in love with him is what really changes her perspective, is what really makes her hopeful that maybe she saw no way out. But with Eric, the love, everything with him, maybe there is a way out for me. I have hope because I love him. I'm in love with him. I haven't told him everything about my life. I haven't shared that one thing with him, but I'm about to. You know what? Tomorrow I'm going to do it. I'm going to be honest with him. I'm going to tell him the truth. I'm going to tell him everything. And then I'm going to ask him, does he want to try to get married? Just turn this shit on his head. Be a little more nuanced. Let's be a little more. How about it be the woman who's like, I'm going to finally be honest with him. I'm going to open up. He's going to know the whole me. And then I'm going to ask. And then I'm going to tell him I love him. And I'm going to see if he wants to spend the rest of his life with me. They get killed before that can happen. Before she can really tell that story about what happened with this accidental killing. The crow brings her back to life because she was the one who got manipulated into killing. She was the one who has the connection with this demon guy. She is the one who is questioning, am I worthy enough of this love? So it's about her coming back to life, becoming the crow, but going on this quest of, and she's getting revenge. But at the same time, she's thinking about Eric and she's like, am I worthy enough of his love? Because of these things that I did, because of this, what happened with my family, because of these things right here. And this is a story about her overcoming that whilst getting revenge.
If you're wanting to keep Devil Guy,
that's the better movie.
If you're wanting to keep Devil Guy in all those aspects of the story, you're kind of right. That's the only way to do it. Like,
that's the better movie, guys. With this,
yes.
If you're keeping script that you have,
I'm throwing away most of the elements of the movie and going, just go do the old Crow movie, but just add the beginning part. Like, if you're wanting to keep a lot of these elements, you're absolutely right. She's the Crow. That makes way more sense. It is a better motivation, and you don't have to have the double Crow because she could just,
yeah,
because she can't ever like. And if you want to keep the double Crow, instead of it being that she finally, or like she questions like the love they have or whatever, you have her questioning whether or not she's still worthy of the love that Eric had.
Exactly.
And so her becoming, you know, complete Crow or whatever is her accepting that even though she's flawed, she did deserve the love they had. It has nothing to do with his love or her love for him or anything like that. It's her finally accepting that even though she's flawed, she still deserved the love and that it was real because, you know, she didn't feel like she no longer more or less had imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like she finally accepted the totality of their combined love because she finally accepted that she was worthy of it. And that's why she becomes Mega Crow or whatever.
Yeah, and Yeah,
I
and
love that. I fucking love that. Sorry, Heather, I'll say this one last thing and I'll let you go. I love that though, because, and that's a more nuanced, that's a more modern kind of story. And I like the lesson of love can overcome. That's the whole point of this thing, right? Is that love overcomes all. It overcomes death. It overcomes, love can overcome your insecurities. Why can't we say something real in this shit with the make-believe shit?
Isn't that also just more relatable?
Exactly.
I mean, I've been in love a couple of times in my life. I've never have it, tested by a devil dude or any of that shit though. Can't relate to that. Unless you're saying I'm the devil dude, then I guess I do kind of get it. All right, Heather, go.
But we've all been that insecure person.
Exactly.
No?
That's just...
We've all been that person that's been like, man, am I worthy of this? Can I have this? Am I capable of having this because of everything that is wrong with me?
Man, one of my favorite Kelly Clarkson songs is about that. All right, this time for reals, Heather, go.
No, I mean, I was just gonna add to that of like, if you're adding the element of like her proving like the self-worth thing, it could also be the element of, since a lot of the story is about grieving and it's also about the guilt aspect of it, at least the original material is, it's like, what if it's one of those things where as the Crow, she's kind of also like, nope, I haven't killed everybody responsible, because she still feels responsible too. And so it's that kind of overcoming, like, letting go of the guilt I felt, because sometimes it's just not your fault and things happen kind of thing. I think that could also be a really good element and a better, more relatable lesson for a story like this too.
You want to know how you flip that and add that into the story of the Crow? Because I do like that aspect of it. One of the things you add to it is that whilst they are guilt-ridden, like a crow or whatever, while they're fighting, that's whenever like their fighting style is more I take damage to deal damage, because they want to hurt, they want to suffer. Even whilst they're getting revenge, they want to suffer. And while it is effective, it's also not effective. Like, well, yes, they're getting the job done and they're getting some revenge. It's not the most effective way to fucking fight. And have it be like one of those things, like when they accept it, like whilst they can feel guilty and stuff like that, unless that, they murdered the other person, is it ultimately their responsibility that criminals came in and killed somebody? No, it's not your responsibility that other people chose to murder somebody. You might feel guilty, but ultimately it's not your responsibility. Like, it can't all be on you unless you murdered somebody. That's a different thing. But like, and as they learn to accept it and to relinquish some of that guilt, and you could just have it shown as like in their fighting, they're actually more dodgy, more, secretive, more assassin-like. So they're still getting their revenge. They're still doing some of that, but they're not taking the damage because they no longer feel the need to suffer. And it's not that they can't take damage. It's just they're not choosing that route. And so then they become more efficient in their revenge. And I'm not saying that has to be an actual like big story point, but it's something you add as a background thing, as a subtlety in the change of things that just adds nuance to the way you're portraying your character and the way they're fighting and the way that they are actually enacting going and getting revenge.
Yep.
No, I like it. Even if she was, this is a bit morbid, but even if she, like you said, whether it's allowing herself to be hurt to some extent because it's subconsciously there's this, I need to punish myself, or she was just maiming herself. If she had maybe a cool element of the character design, what if she had these cuts, or what if she had these scars, or what if there were times where like she would just like physically harm herself kind of because of that guilt that.
Oh, I think what you're talking about, the way you do that is her gearing up for a fight. Like she starts like stabbing knives through her to give like spikes protruding to do more damage and stuff like that. Like that's like causing stupid amounts of pain just to make her more efficient at damage because she's got knives sticking out of her. You know what I mean? Like at one point, because like she can be like slightly pinned down, she cuts off her arm at the elbow and then like lifts it up and just starts to beat the fucking person with it. Like stuff like that. Like go savage with it.
Yeah.
Like it show it being destructive, like self-destructive. And, you know, showing her feel, or, you know, whoever, the crow feeling the pain while they do it.
Yeah.
You know, because like that's one of the things in this movie. Man, he felt so guilty about getting surprised and choked out. Like, I mean, I get it. You want to be the protector. I get it. You wants to be, but like, come on, man. You got surprised, man. You didn't even know the people. You did not know that was a possibility in your life that would happen.
Which I will say that reminds me a little bit of that too, where I'm like, for as brutal as they did a lot of deaths in this, theirs was the weakest death. Like it was not a brutal death. And like, that's part of the crazy tragedy of at least that first movie and the source material of like, it's a brutal murder. And this was just like, okay, cool. We put bags over your head and suffocated you. Like like if you're going with the route of, you know, killing the main characters, why are we doing it in a way that's so much less brutal than anybody else when like that's the whole point of, you know, adding to that revenge and anger that he's going to have, because it was just not even just killing, but like brutal killing, you know? And like, that was just weird to me that they made that choice to make their deaths very like not brutal.
Well, I get them leaving out the rape from the first movie because it's 2024. Do you really always have to have fucking rape and all these other things? So I totally get it. I think the reason why they went that way is because there's an element of visual like fucked upness of the fact that they're both like able to look into each other's eyes as they die when it comes to the bag over the head thing. Plus, it's the easiest way to give a cheap cop out to somebody still being alive later.
That's fair, but I guess my thing with it too is like Devil Dude whispering, like what he did with the first girl, where he whispers to her and she stabs her own self in the neck. Like if you're trying to be brutal and like relentless and devilly with it, make them kill each other or something. Like something where you just feel like it's much more devil business, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. Like the devil business, that shit only matters twice in the movie. It's so fucking weird. Like,
yeah.
And that's the thing. If you're going to have somebody supernaturally coming back from the dead, even though they're the whole point is maybe that the character, the FKA Twigs character, doesn't know that they're supernaturally coming back from the dead, but we as an audience do. You could have it be some fucked up shit then. Have them get beat the fuck out of both of them, all this other shit, and have them like get fucked up with it. Have them both be like on death's door, and the bad guys are going, well, since they're just lovebirds, let's let them fly off together and throw them out the fucking window together. And if you really want the weird conceit that someone survives, have it be that she landed on top of him as they fell. like even all fucked up and battered and broken and all these things, that he grabbed her and like held on to her and made sure he landed so she wouldn't take the brunt of the fall. And that's how she was still able to survive in the end. Because it's all a bunch of contrivance anyway. Like, it's all a stretch of the imagination. Then lean into it. Go brutal, but also go weirdly romantic with it. You know what I mean? Like, you could do it that way.
Yeah, something. I mean, because I totally agree, Heather. It needed to be something to where you look at it and go, man, that was so incredibly bad. No wonder the Crow is giving them a second chance. Because if these people kill innocent people like this all the time, if he's deviling and killing people like this all the time, I mean, why did the Crow choose these people? Like, if we saw more brutal, innocent deaths in it, why did the Crow choose these two?
Because the script said they was in love, Jastin.
I mean, more to that point, though, too, like, it's kind of like what I think both of you sort of alluded to this, where the idea to give more background and building up of their relationship was a good one. They still did it wrong, because for me, I'm like, also, they're not super clear on like the time frame here. And it feels like there's obviously some kind of a time jump in their relationship. But like, I feel like it was just hard for me to be invested in like, they're so crazy in love, because I'm not sure on this time frame. And before this, they just met. Like, at least in the 94 one, it's like, clear, these people are about to get married the next day. Like, they are fully in love. They are about to start a new journey in their life together. You know, it's going to be the happiest day of their life tomorrow. And then they're killed before that. Like, with this, I feel like building the relationship didn't mean anything, because I still just don't feel like by the time we get to the point when the tragedy goes down, that they still even know each other on that level. And you're right. Part of that is the whole thing of she didn't even tell him her secret. Even if she had been like, listen, I did something bad, but let me explain what happened here. You know, even if she's like, oh, I don't know if you're going to believe me or whatever. Like, it's just, you don't feel like there's that much of that complete love and trust between them by the time we get to the point in the movie when they die. And that's why it's harder to buy this love story too, I think. And they just needed, if they were going to build this relationship, give me like a, Star is Born chemistry where you get it, you feel it, you understand it, like something, you know what I mean? Or like a Crazy Stupid Love, Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling type thing where you're just like, oh, you get it. You see the points where they're like in this relationship, like they are completely in love with each other. And you feel it and you see the progression of that if you want us to be invested in the fact that they both die in front of each other the way that they kind of wanted that to be. And you make a good point about that, Sterling. I mean, yeah, you're watching each other die. That's horrific. I get that. But it was just a lot of the things they were trying to do just don't feel earned with the plot points. The plot points of what they do don't feel earned in this movie. Like, because another thing that I had a problem with is it kind of feels like at the beginning of this, it's really her story. Like that she's the main character, which is why if she was the Crow, that would make sense. Like they go into more of, oh, she's being called, like she gets put in this rehab place, she gets found and all this stuff. And like you're getting her backstory. You aren't really getting much of Eric's backstory other than the love of his life, the horse. Like, other than that, you're not. Like, why is he there? What happened to get him to that point where he's in that place where he meets Shelley? Like that just to me, I'm like, okay, we want to know more about these characters, but you're still not quite giving me the thing that we do need to care more. You're doing it in the wrong way.
I feel like you guys are being really mean to this movie. You expect them to write it in the script and film it?
It's maybe asking too much. Yeah, I don't know.
And then
we're asking for a lot here.
Guys, you want them to write it down and film it and then also show it? Guys.
We're probably asking too much here. Yeah.
Just,
but
your
I mean, like,
standards are just too high.
I will say one other thing too, like not a super big plot point, but something that actually really bothered me was when we see Eric in rehab and he's going through the lesson of like letting people come up and bully him and like belittle him, and he's standing there and taking it, and that's like supposed to be part of the like rehabilitation that they're going through and group together. I hate that. I actually hate that, because I'm like, is that really a thing that they do in rehab, where they're just like, all right, guys, we're going to really try to make you strong and make sure you can resist all these things. So let's have every other person in this group go up and just bully the hell out of you to see what you do. Why would you do that in a rehab? Isn't it supposed to be about support and building up and lifting up and encouraging each other? Like, why are you just like, all right, take turns bullying each other just so that we can, because we're going to deal with this in the real world when we get back out there, probably. Like, why is that a thing? Like, it just was a really dumb, like, lesson and thing that they did that I was like, there's no way. Like, maybe it does. To be fair, I've never been to rehab, so maybe they do that. I hate the idea of that, because I'm like, giving me a taste of the real world that I'm going to be in after I leave here. That's not what I need in this moment. I need the support to keep me stable for when I am out in the real world. Like, what are we doing here? So that just kind of bugged me on a more like smaller scale level of what the story's about.
Well, I really loved that it was like rehab, but it was also jail, but it was also boot camp.
And like a dorm room or something. Yeah.
Like when they're all sitting there at that one point and they're all doing jumping jacks and he's not or whatever. And like that guy walks by and he's like, "What are you doing, maggot? You like it's fucking an army movie or something." He's like, "No, no one that serves my great country does this. If you're going to be in rehab, you're going to be in rehab. And you're going to be the best damn rehab that this military's ever seen." Like, what is this?
It's somebody who like was trying to write like what a rehab is like. That's never actually been to rehab. 100%.
All the prison guards were like drill instructors. And then like the doctors were hippies. It was really weird. Cause he's like, "Guys, we have to breathe and accept the life that we have. But if you don't do any goddamn jumping jacks, I'm going to shove my boot so far up your fucking ass." It's like, what are we doing? It was this weird utopia of every stereotype of prison / the military / rehab / a Dr. Phil episode that you'll ever fucking watch.
And those ankle monitors can just be snipped. I mean,
dude, they weren't even snipped. He just pulled them. He just pulled it like it was a slightly stuck on Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. For real. He's just kind of like, I guess I'm tired of it now, so let's just get him off now. Like,
I was like, it's that easy? I didn't understand.
I was almost at points where it just felt like they were in a dorm room, like a co-ed, like college dorm. I'm just like, what is this vibe you have? I don't understand what you're going for here. Like, and I think the thing that really confuses me too is the guy who supposedly like wrote this movie, or the screenplay for it. He also did Creed 3's screenplay. And he did the King Richard movie screenplay.
Is he the one though that got his name or wanted his name pulled off this? Because one of the screenwriters wanted their name pulled off it and they were unsuccessful. So could have been one of those.
If that's the case, possibly. Because I'm just kind of like, those were good movies. I'm confused. What happened with the writing here? Maybe. You could be right.
I know one of the writers was apparently unsuccessful with getting his name pulled off the movie. Because technically he had written too much of it. And even if it like they had butchered everything around it, technically because he had written so much of an actual percentage of this that they might have been like, nope, we're legally obligated to keep you on as a writer of this movie. So
that's possible. because I'm just like, that track record, like, that's crazy. Like, I mean, not all ideas have to be winners. I understand this. But I'm just like, you went from writing a screenplay for Creed 3 and that other movie, and then now you've got this. Like, I mean, what happened? I don't know.
Maybe he had a devil guy yelling in his ear while he's writing this movie.
He's like, you're gonna write it the way I want you to write it. But my thing too is, I do want to say though that like the way that Eric becomes the Crow in this, as far as not like learning that he has these abilities, learning that he heals and stuff like that, I do think that piece was done a little bit better here in this movie, because in the 94 movie, he's just kind of like knows what's happening. And like, you don't get a progression of like, oh, this is what I am now. But in this movie, you at least like, he gets shot and he's just like, how am I still alive? Kind of like you see at least on his face that he's confused. And then while he's healing, he's like in so much pain and he's like, what the hell is happening here? So I think they did that aspect better here, which again, it didn't really take much to do it better, because they just didn't do it at all in the 94 movie. It was just kind of like, I am back and I understand everything going on right now. Like, there was just no like leading up to it for him to understand what was happening. And then this one, they did that better.
All right, I'm tired of this shit. You guys got anything else you want to say?
I'm good.
No, we good.
On that note, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the CineSlayer Podcast. Check us out on the internet, www.cineslayer.com. We are CineSlayer Podcast on Facebook, Cinema_Slayers on Threads, Instagram, Letterboxd, at CineSlayers Pod on TikTok and YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your friends' family, tell your family's friends. Most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers, because dear sweet mothers love.
No version of Crow movies.
They love love, Heather. They love love.
Can they love Bill Skarsgård? Because I just think it's not his fault.
Nope, you can't love him after this movie. We here at the CineSlayers Podcast are pro slut, pro Sydney, pro naked. We are also very much pro justice for Chris, justice for Todd, justice for stunt people. And we are also loving you, Cinefans, because you are enough. We would have turned into the Crow 2.0 right away, because we would have known we could accept your love. And you could accept ours. Because of the enoughness that exists. Slight update on some stuff real quick. Yeah, Henry Kissinger's still dead. I know I was doing a weekly update on it, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to burden people with my burden. I'll just,
Sure.
Just let you know every once in a while. Still dead, or holy shit, guys, we got an undead army to fight. So, just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Blame the fucking Crow. And as I always in these TikToks, these YouTube videos, and more importantly, this podcast, just remember, according to Jastin, Moon Knight is a Best Picture winner.
The name of that horse, White Beauty.
Fun fact I forgot to mention that I wanted to was the guy that directed the John Wick movies is actually the stuntman that filled in for Brandon Lee after he died.
Yeah. And was also Keanu Reeves' stuntman for a very long time. He was Keanu Reeves' stunt double for the Matrix movies, all those. That's where they became friends. And that's what led to John Wick.
That makes sense.
Cool.
Oh man, I am crowed the fuck out. Just so much crow. You know what's really fucked up too? And I should have mentioned this during the actual episode itself. There's no crows in these movies. Those are all ravens. Those aren't crows. So it's all a fucking lie. Especially in the first movie. The first movie, as far as I don't know, I don't get a good look at the aviary situation in this, remake. But in the first movie, that's a raven. It's not a crow. That's a raven. And yes, people, those are different animals. They are like as close, like super close cousins, but also not the same. It's
all a lie.
I mean, that really is just like going, hey, me and Jastin are both bald, so we look alike. We're bald with facial hair.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Twins.
They should have called this movie The Raven. Did you guys ever see that John Cusack movie, The Raven? Where he played Edgar Allan Poe being a detective?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty damn dumb, dude. That was a good face, Jastin.
Yeah, that sounded horrible.
You don't want to see John Cusack as Edgar Allan Poe being a detective in the 1800s? Or whatever the fuck it was? I mean...
Those are...
Well, you're lost, Jastin. Or mine. Because did you even know that movie existed?
No. And I wish it would stay that way. Because of you, now I know it exists.
Oh, no. That means... Does that mean if you die, you're going to come back and crow me?
I will, because especially if I wind up watching it. If I wind up watching it, the crow will be coming for my ass.
Yeah.
Going, damn, you watch that bullshit, man. Let me give you another chance.
Oh, no. I'm going to get killed by Jastin because I made him watch The Raven.
Yep.
I kind of want to make you watch it now.
No.
Right.
Don't make me crow you.
I want to see you try. I'll make you doubt yourself, and you'll have to become the Black Blood Crow, because I'll make you doubt it.
Yeah, that's what would be the sad thing. I'd come back as a crow, and I'd be all painted up and stuff, and you probably just start laughing, and you going, ha, ha, I know why you're here. Ha, ha. I bet you watched that dumbass movie. You would just be laughing as I killed you.
And I'd still feel justified. I'd be like,
yeah, you'd still feel
the winner.
Justified.
I'm the winner in this situation.
You'd be making fun of me because I had to put that ink and all that stuff on my face, and I'd have on a wig.
You couldn't even come back magically with that shit. You had to go do it yourself to come kill me.
Yeah. I'd have to go do that myself. And you'd be sitting there laughing at me, calling me Jastin Lee or something. And then while I'm killing you, and just be laughing about it. Like you would just be mean. You would just
what was Eric's last name? Like Devlin or something like that?
Yeah.
Draven.
Jastin Draven.
Draven, yes. Jastin Draven.
Jastin Draven. Getting all crowed up to come kill Sterling because he made him watch a movie. Oh, he's so scary.
That's exactly what he's going to say to you when he sees you show up as the crow.
Go, oh no, It's Jastin Draven. I'm so scared.
You're going to kill me. The crow sent you here to kill me because of that movie.
Oh no.
Because I made you watch a movie about his cousin.
Raven.
Oh no. Oh no.
Do you think the crow attempted to send back the guy that Ray Lewis killed before the Super Bowl, but then realized he couldn't do that because he was a raven? And he's like, no, I can't send a crow after a raven.
Stop. Man, get off. Cut this thing up. Cut this damn thing up.
Oh, no.
Cut this fucking thing off. You need to be put in time out. Put in time out. It's time out for you.
I do apologize for joking about a real life murder, but the joke's more at Ray Lewis than it is the guy that died.
Time out. You need to be put in time out.
One final thing. Did you guys hear? Did you hear what Donald Trump said about O.J. Simpson?
No.
Oh, no.
He was just talking about how O.J. Simpson was a great man. And that they played football together once. And that O.J. Simpson said that Donald Trump was probably the best runner he's ever seen. Let's set aside
Oh, no.
the fact that OJ is a murdering son of a bitch. Let's just set that aside.
That aside.
Set that aside. But you're telling me that the juice looked at Donald Trump and was like, "You're the best runner I've ever seen. Get the fuck out of here." Like, come on. Like, I know politics is about lies and all kinds of shit, but you gotta like make it at least sound kind of plausible. Like, in some universe, that's a thing.
Yeah, I also, unsetting aside that, like, is this the kind of person you want telling you that you're a great runner?
I mean, that's
Probably not.
and that's why I set the murder aside. Because I will say that there are probably about like two things OJ knows how to do, and that's run and hire super good lawyers when you murder somebody. So, I mean, he would kind of be an expert in running. So I wanted to kind of give him his credentials, in the field of running.
Man, not even
That's
Johnny
fair.
Cochran could convince me that Donald Trump is good at running, doing anything.
And that OJ, of all people, would look at him and go, "Man, the best runner I've ever seen."
Yeah. You run the best. I've been around the company of football players and athletes that were some of the best of all time. But you, Donald Trump, you run the best.
That would be like Michael Phelps looking at me and going, "Man, Sterling, you sure are fucking the best swimmer. Just the best."
Just the best. Just not, oh, you're the best at 300 pounds. Not you're the best at just this, like, the best. That means undisputed. That means better than any other runner he ever saw in the history of running, including himself.
And the reason why I think it's an apt comparison with swimming and Donald Trump running is because I probably hate swimming as much as that man hates running. I don't like pools. I don't like getting wet. So yeah, I probably have the same aversion to swimming as that man has to running. Yeah. And Michael Phelps, just Sterling, best swimmer. And this is also after he opted out of the draft because of bone spurs. So can't physically can't go fight in a war, but can physically run better than anybody ever alive. I'm just like, of all people, like, and why do you start it off with, I was with O.J. Simpson, that great man. You're like, no. Like, come on. I thought we had accepted a few things, and like it's just such a weird time. Like, I thought we like vaccines good, earth round, O.J. Simpson murdered people. I thought that there were like three truths that we all accepted. Like from school, And apparently that's all up in the
Basics.
air. They're all vaccines bad, Earth flat. O.J. Simpson, great guy.
This world, what happened?
It's all topsy-turvy. Do you remember back in the day when it was not controversial when Captain America punched a Nazi?
Yes.
And now if
Yes.
they have Sam Wilson as Captain America, because he was Captain America in the comics for a little bit, I remember they threw a fit because he punched Nazis. So because he was a black Captain America and he punched Nazis, they're like, but Sam Wilson's punching white people because they're Nazis. Guys, like, it doesn't change. It's still Captain America hitting a Nazi. Remember when that was like considered the most standard thing you could do?
Yes.
Like, if Captain America wasn't punching a Nazi, that's when it's controversial.
The good days.
It's a weird fucking year, man. Weird fucking year. Oh, fuck, this went long. All right, I'm out.